Good day. Again, Dwayne Moore. We here with Impact Podcast. As you can see, we got a guest in the studio today, and just humbled to have Richard here with us to just kind of have a comfortable conversation. A lot of times when we bring people in the studio, sometimes, we get people who are nervous. We get people that don't really know what lanes we're going to drive down with the conversation. But, as I always say, it's an impact show. Our audience is our community. Our audience are the people who tune in to listen, to the things that we're talking about that's not only going on locally, but kind of going on across our country. And we know there's a lot of things, and sometimes we paint the picture that there's a lot of negative things going on around our country, but there's a lot of positive things going on around our country as well. And so we're delighted to have you, Richard, in the show to kind of have this comfortable conversation with us and kind of talk a little bit about like what's going on around our country. Again, some things that could be better. If there's possibilities, we get the right people in place, right people in position. But again, we're very grateful. We're very humble to have you in the studios with us on today. But, just want to give you the opportunity just for a moment, just tell us a little bit about yourself and some things that we may not know. And then we'll get into some questions and we'll get into kind of going back and forth with a chat conversation, if that's good with you.
Absolutely. I mean, it's just my sitting here right now is the product of something called synchronicity.
Okay.
Just
powerful
accident, just being in the flow. I was here for a previous podcast at this beautiful studio in Los Angeles, and the person whose house this is said, well, there's this really great guy named Dwayne Moore who is coming in, and he'd love to have you on as a guest. So it's like, okay, I'm here. Sure, I would love to do that, because I think that the universe, or you would say God, tends to put you in places where you can do two things. You can learn and grow as an individual soul, and you can be able to contribute.
That's right.
So I get to learn about you and hear your perspective and have this experience of being in this podcast with you. And hopefully I get to contribute things that might be a little outside of what your listeners are generally consuming. And for them, and my goal would be, instead of dismissing things, say, interesting. Let me take that in. Let me digest it. Let me see if it can contribute to who I am in my life, or I'm going to say, no, that's his reality and it's not mine.
Man, I like that, Richard, because a lot of times, we hear often, you have a lot of takers, but not a lot of sowers. You have people who, and I always want to, as I redefined my life some years ago, I want to immerse myself in the community to be an individual that will give back. And a lot of times when we say give back, people always, think money or just time. But what about just your daily walk? What level of impact can you make on the individual by saying good morning, have a great day, have a great weekend, just being, gracing them with a smile, just my mom told me something years ago that stuck with me. She said, you're responsible for being in charge of how people feel when they're in your presence. And I was like, wow. I was like, how many people that we get the opportunity to be around them and then they leave us in a worse off position or state than when they came to us, or you came to me. And I often, here in the office space sometime, man, I was great till I got to work. Man, I was having a great day till I got with you. And I'm like, I don't want that to be said about me. I want to be responsible for, if a person has an encounter with me, they can walk away saying, I always enjoy being with him. I always have a blast when I'm around him. And so I like that you started with, how can you contribute? Because you're right. A lot of my listeners, they tune in because, and we'll get off into this in a second, we drive down the lanes of faith, family, influence. And so a lot of my listeners, they'll tune in because we always have a powerful word or a powerful message or someone in the studio doing a show with us and having that different perspective, why you believe different sometimes, why we believe the same. And sometimes we get more out of why we believe differently. And so, starting out just today, and something that we always do, we either make our guests tell a joke to make the audience laugh, or they have an option. Or they could be asked 3 questions by me.
Okay, let me just respond to what you said. So I used to be a lawyer. I was a lawyer for a guy named Tony Robbins, one of the greatest motivational speakers in the world. Back at the beginning of his career, helped him establish his empire. And then I have since then traveled around and taught public speaking to presidents, prime ministers, royalty, CEOs in 53 countries on 6 continents. And what you said is exactly the goal of a public speaker, and that is to leave the audience at a more inspired and at a higher level and more motivated than when they came in.
Wow.
Right? So your job is not just to disseminate and download information, it's literally to lift people up. Right?
Wow, that's powerful.
So I will take the 3-question option.
You think most people do? I'm like, I always get folks in the studios. I'm like, you can't make folks laugh. No. Okay, 3 questions. Okay, here we go. Okay, what are you good at? What are you not good at that can, you can use some improvement? And if you had just a regret, I mean, sometimes that's such an ugly word when you say regret, and sometimes I don't be wanting people to deep dive, because most times if it's a mom, she's I regret I can't spend more time with my kids because I'm traveling, I'm doing this. And so I'm like, okay, that could be, a slight good regret, vice versa, something that I wish that if I had an opportunity to go back and do it differently. So let's start out with, okay, what would, and most folks always never like saying what they're good at, and they always lead with, this is what people tell me I'm good at. So let's take it from that angle.
The BBC has a program called BBC Maestro, which is the BBC version of Masterclass, where they invite experts to come and share courses. And they hired me to teach their BBC Maestro class on public speaking and communication. So I am really, really, really good, because I love it.
Wow.
At taking people who are afraid of public speaking, who are shy, who are not very good at it, who don't know what to say, who don't know how to connect with an audience, who don't know how to hold an audience. I'm really good at getting them to be as close as possible to a Tony Robbins, or in their own way, great speakers like a Martin Luther King. So I love doing that. It's incredibly exciting for me to see people grow so quickly. And so I'm really good at that.
Wow, man, that's powerful. That's powerful, because you're right. I think we got some good speakers out there, but with some grooming can be greater. And I didn't even, I'm sure, there's a lot of people who come to those type of settings, because you're absolutely right. When you own a stage, there's a lot of different dynamics going on. I mean, whether it's 100 people, whether it's 10,000 people, there's a lot going on. So I can only imagine, in order to master your craft, you got the steward getting better. So that's amazing. So what about if there was something that you think that you could work on to be a little bit better?
For myself, by the way, the real definition of great public speaking is that great public speaking, it's not a performance, not a presentation, it's nothing more than having a conversation from your heart, which is what Dr. King did.
Wow.
About something you are authentically passionate about, no BS, in order, and this is the most important part, in order to help other people.
That's powerful.
Right, so what did Dr. King? He was speaking to inspire and give hope and energy and possibility to millions and millions of people across the country and around the world. So, and his focus not on me, on my nervous, I mean, his daddy was a preacher, right?
Yeah.
He was raised, right?
Yeah,
he was
right.
like you look at Tiger Woods, his dad was a golfer, right? He started very young. What I'm not good at, 2 things. One is I'd be really, really scared to stand in front of an audience. I'd love to stand in front of an audience of 100,000 people and speak. I'd be scared to stand in front of an audience of 20 people and sing. But I'm not good at, I'll tell you what I'm really not good at. I'm not good at handling internally people who are closed-minded. That drives me up the frickin' wall.
Yeah.
Because I think life is this magical mystery, that no one can fully explain. It is, I mean, you look at the size of the universe, I mean, trillions of galaxies, and we've got trillions of cells, and each one cell is a divine miracle, right? And if you're going to be closed to anything, right, that in a way is denying the miracle of existence itself. And I have a hard time with people that's like, no, this is my opinion, blah, blah, blah. I know what it is. I said, really? You know? Well, explain how energy can be neither created nor destroyed, the first law of thermodynamics, meaning that there is essentially no beginning.
Yeah.
Explain that one to me then.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, you don't know that? Then maybe you don't know everything.
You don't know everything. I like that. I got to coin that. I love coining statements and quotes that I hear from other people. So regrets. If there's one thing that you like, hey, I could either.
I mean, I regret. I have FOMO a lot.
Yeah.
It's like I want to be in 5 places at the same time. I regret that I made the decision to get on that plane and go there instead of going there or whatever. Yeah. So there's that I want to be everywhere all the time, because I think life is a banquet, and everything. Everything is so incredibly fascinating, interesting. I want to experience anything and everything. I regret, but it motivates me. So I just turned 70.
Oh, wow. Wow.
Right? And so I regret that I have not made the kind of impact in certain ways in terms of things that I have studied and share in terms of, politics and philosophy and things. For example, we were talking earlier, I'm plant-based. I've been a vegetarian, mostly vegan for 40 years. I regret that in some way I've not been able to share the benefits of eating less meat, right? That my impact is not as great. But then I figured, I want another 30, 40 years, and I'm still going to be able to do it.
I'll still be able to do it. What is that lifestyle like? I mean, do you miss eating meat or?
To be honest with you, so Tony Robbins, who I worked with, I was his lawyer and helped him build his business towards the beginning of his career. He gave a health seminar back in January of 1983, and he went through all of the reasons, like the incredible torture of animals, especially on factory farms here in America, the hormones and the antibiotics and the chemicals that are fed to animals, and the environmental impact of raising animals. So all these things, it's like, well, okay, I'm going to give it a try. So I decided I was going to quit for a year. I was only going to be plant-based for a year. This was back in 1984, where it was really difficult.
I'm going to say it's very difficult.
There wasn't any Impossible Burgers that you could just go, right? Yeah. And I went to Burger King, as I was telling you, and I would order the Whopper, my way. And so my way was without the meat.
Without the meat.
And I said, please put an extra slice of tomato on there so I don't starve. But the thing about that is, I believe that animals are equal to us. I don't believe that I'm better than an animal. I actually don't know if you've heard this term. I'm Jewish, and I wrote a book on God. Okay. It was a children's book entitled E = MC squared, which is Albert Einstein's scientific formula. E = MC squared, and the new definition of God. And I can explain what that is, but Einstein, just like his spiritual guru in that way, Baruch Spinoza, who was in the 1600s, he was a philosopher, were pantheists, meaning they believe that, and I know this may be different than what you believe, that God is everything, that everything is God. And I wrote a little poem, because everybody says, because I never figured this out, said, if God is everywhere. Do you believe God is everywhere?
Do I believe God is everywhere? I believe God is everywhere.
Okay, so here's my poem. Ready? It's a pantheist poem that I wrote. If God is truly everywhere is the title of the poem. If God is truly everywhere, where would he not be? A rabbit, a thought, a friend and an enemy, a mountain and a tree. And if God is truly everywhere, he must also be me.
Wow. Recite that again.
If God is truly everywhere, where would he not be? A rabbit, a thought, a friend and an enemy, a mountain and a tree. And if God is truly everywhere, he must also be me.
Wow.
So the difference is, a lot of evangelicals and others think that they have a spark of the divine inside of themselves. And if they pray and whatever, they can connect with God. And I think prayer is fantastic, and meditation and mindfulness and following what you believe to be a divine path. But I mean, again, if God is truly everywhere, he's everything in different forms.
In different forms.
In different forms, like this glass, my cell phone, this book, this chair is God in a different form, that everything is God. Yeah. And the truth is that we are literally stardust.
Yeah.
And true. What is a star? A star is so literally this chair and every cell in our body comes from exploded stars. Did you know that?
Yeah. No, I've heard that.
No, it's scientifically true.
Scientifically true.
And what is a star? A star is the reincarnation of the Big Bang, according to science, right? Which was God's creation of the universe. So we are the living, vibrating electrons and atoms and molecules of the beginning of the universe that God created. Every single thing. And the atoms, the hydrogen, the helium, the oxygen, the carbon that's in my body is in everywhere in the universe.
Everywhere in the universe. Let me ask you a question. That kind of, you kind of segue us into the whole faith, family influence. So I feel like
we have to talk about politics and Donald Trump at some point.
Yeah, we will. That's a whole nother segment. But no, we'll dive off into some of the politics. But so let me ask you a question. So when you start talking about faith, and you've talked a lot about coming from the Jewish community, and you talk a lot about God and creation. So what is your philosophy based on God? Do you read the Bible, the Holy Bible, or approach that for me? Because, everybody's different, and I want your take on that. I know and I'm willing to share what my beliefs are, but I want to hear your perspective when it relates to, do you read or study the Holy Bible?
So I've read much of the Bible, the Old Testament and the New Testament. I've spent time in Israel. I spent a week at a yeshiva, which is a Torah-based learning experience. But I think that, I've also spent 3.5 months in India and Nepal, studying with gurus, with Hinduism and Buddhism, and I've spent a lot of time in the Middle East, where I've talked to people who are Muslims and studying that. I think it's all the same.
Okay.
I think it's all the same. And here's my conclusion as a seeker of truth. First of all, I as a Jewish person, I'm happy to say I love Jesus Christ.
Amen.
Okay, maybe in a different way. I haven't given my life over to him in the way that an evangelical would. Yeah. But the dude had it going on, man. And the Jewish religion is oh, Jesus. First of all, he was a Jew, right? Okay. Yeah. But if you read the New Testament, every single thing that I believe about how human beings should be and how they should work and be and support and love other human beings is exactly what I believe.
Yeah, no, absolutely. When you think about
what's not to like about him?
Yeah, absolutely.
Come on.
Yeah, he came to be the perfect example, of how we should be living and treating each other.
Well, that's one interpretation.
Yeah.
That's one interpretation. And I believe that there are people who are at a higher frequency.
Yeah.
Right? So some people believe Buddha was like that as well. And that there are people even in our midst, maybe, Mother Teresa or whatever, that are more modern. But let's say that Jesus Christ was the most perfect representation of the divine, of God, right? And that he came there, right? That doesn't mean that we're not God. And I know that seems blasphemous to people who study, certain scripture. I'm not saying that I'm as good as Jesus.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I'm saying I'm made of the same stuff, right? We're all made of the same elements, right? And I believe, as I said in my poem that I just recited twice, that everything is God. And so my job on this planet is to follow the lead of someone who is 100% divine in a physical body, right?
No,
that's the goal. And we have moments like that when I am showing incredible compassion and love and support and great respect and honoring the God's creation and the divine in all things. If I can shift myself out of being angry or self-centered or distracted or stressed or whatever, and I can do that in prayer or meditation, I get closer to that frequency that Jesus was here to remind us that is our birthright. Does that make
absolutely.
sense?
No, I totally agree with you. Would you recommend? I mean, like, a lot of times and I know everybody comes from different walks of life, and a lot of times, because I get it all the time because of what I do, some people call me a God man. I'm like, a God man? I'm like, I believe, and I try to walk a way that I feel that's going to be more pleasing, to my Father in heaven. So I'm like, I won't, like, quote unquote, and I don't know if that's an understatement of me saying I wouldn't want to be looked at as a God man, because I do, because if Christ, if we honor Christ because he was a sacrificial lamb that came to this earth and you could not find spot of blemish on him, then would I want to, he said, greater is he that's in me that's in the world, representing that I should be doing greater works. And so with that being said, I guess I shouldn't look at it negatively. If somebody call me a God, man, you could call me many other things.
So I'm going to go a little further. I think, and see how this fits with that. There is only white light.
Yeah.
Did you know that?
Yeah.
So you look at the rainbow,
yeah,
and you go, hold on, no, there's red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet.
Yeah.
But then when you spin it all together, what happens?
Yeah.
It's white light.
It's white light. You're right.
So you can and I believe white light, like light, is love.
Yeah.
Right? When people are dying and they come back, they have a near-death experience. I went into the light and I was filled with the most beautiful, incredible, overwhelming love, and I didn't want to leave it. And I saw Jesus or I saw Buddha or whatever they say, right?
Yeah.
We have documented history of that.
Yeah.
Thousands and thousands of people. And then we come back and it's like, okay, but if we live our life in an unwhole way, so the whole of all the colors is white. But if we separate it out and we only focus on the lower frequencies, literally the slower, lower frequencies, which we call that red. And red is why Italian restaurants have the color of their tablecloths and the thing red, because it stimulates the animal part of us, the red, right? Which is why stoplights that want you to stop are red, because it's a denser, more physical color. Yeah. But it's not the whole.
Yeah, that's true.
We got red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet. So I think that we're all God potential. Everything is God. But because of our culture and the way we've been raised and the challenges of being in a physical, dense human body, we sometimes resort to the lower aspects of the God, be out of in separation, in isolation. So the red part would be angry, jealousy, selfish. It's just all about me, and let me rip someone apart because whatever, right? And that exists. So if I step back and I go, okay, well, that's only part. And when we put all the pieces together, the very high spiritual part where I'm praying and the part where I want to punch somebody in the face, and we spin those all together, we come back to white light, and we come to being, light and love and God. Yeah. And so if I know that is the inherent nature of all things, I'm going to live my life in a very different way.
No, absolutely. I guess that comes back to,
we're not that far apart.
Yeah. What does that personal conviction sometimes looks like? Because what bothers, it's like me, I can walk down the highway And I was over Hollywood Boulevard yesterday, and I wouldn't dare do this there. But back at home, when I'm back at home, if I see some out of place, I fix it. And that's a personal conviction for me, because I'm like, well, somebody's gonna have to pick that up. So I'll just go ahead and pick it up, because I just live by, do it because it's the right thing to do. But that's a personal conviction that does not identify that, okay, well, what would God, what would Christ want me to do in that moment?
But I hope that you did it in part because in the moments that you're doing that, or you're walking an old lady across the street, or you're doing something else to help other people, your frequency of your being and your body is more aligned with the frequency of Jesus, with the frequency
True.
of the divine, because you're now being more whole rather than being selfish and separated.
I like that because that's actually what I live by. Because as even I teach my grandson, hey, I feel closer to God when I'm serving other people. I feel closer to God when I stand and hold that door, or I'm willing to pay for something, for somebody.
Do you know why? I, in my opinion, I mean, maybe you have your own thought. That is because we are all one. I believe we are all one, right? Not in the physical universe, right? There's you, a black man sitting in a chair separated by a certain number of feet from me, a white man sitting in a separate. So we have this illusion that they talk about in the Eastern religions of separation.
Yeah, separation. Yeah.
But for people who take plant medicine, for example, so they take ayahuasca or they take ecstasy, and I know it's frowned upon in the evangelical religions, or something called 5-MeO-DMT, which Mike Tyson is a huge fan of. He said it changed his life. That's toad medicine. And you have an experience where you can transcend the duality of this dimension, and you actually physically experience. You can do that in prayer, you can do that in meditation, maybe in yoga, maybe in breath work, but also with chemicals and drugs and plant medicine, and you actually experience the oneness of all things. I think that's our basic nature. You and I are one.
Yeah.
We just, in this incarnation, in this moment, in April of 2024, on the earth plane, we think we're different. And if we could get beyond that, and I think that's what Jesus was saying as well.
Yeah.
Right? If you want to call that, united in the spirit, or what a community of God, well, however you want to describe it.
Yeah.
The thing is, there is no difference between us. There is, as Marianne Williamson, you may have heard of her, says, there's only one of us here.
That's right. Well, and I think, too, if you get into the perspective of religion, and I think that's where a lot of people get turned off by the church, is because, it appears to be a mandate on, you should act like this, you should walk like this, you should talk like this, you shouldn't drink, you shouldn't, all these different things that, you hear in religion that really drives people away from church, which most people think it drives you away from God. But there's a lot of great people don't go to church.
You know what my favorite church is nature.
Yeah, nature, yeah, because you get the opportunity to reverence God for creation. And most people sit in church, they're not reverencing God for creation. They just there.
And you know what? So I flew down to Mazatlan for the eclipse, because Mazatlan, Mexico, was one of the places where there was totality. That was a deeply spiritual experience.
Yeah.
We get to see how the universe is working and how it's so much bigger than us, and it's got its own incredible way of being. And I didn't feel small. I felt like I'm part of that.
Yeah.
Right? It was
that's an incredible
very
feeling.
Spiritual experience.
Yeah, that's an incredible feeling.
Looking in the eyes of a child.
Yeah.
Right? If every parent who's had a kid and they're lying in the crib, and you look in them when they're sleeping and they're not screaming and jumping up and down and creating chaos, right? And you go, wow, and you feel your heart open, right? That's a divine experience.
Yeah, that's a divine experience. That's the feeling I get sometimes when I'm at the ocean, or as seasons change, I get the opportunity to see, like, okay, what falls look like, and I can honor God because of fall. What spring, and so I think that's really reverencing Him for being God in creation and the things that He privileges us to and He gives us access to. Because I think about major blessings to having the ability to see, having the ability to hear. Like I can hear the wind, but I can't. I mean, I can hear it, I can feel it, I can't see it. You see what I'm saying? And to me, that really gets you in touch spiritually to say, okay, God, I honor you because I can hear the wind, even when I don't supposed to see it.
And do you know how magical it is that the neurons in this piece of fleshy fat matter made mainly of cholesterol inside your skull is able to interpret these frequencies of sound or frequencies of light and turn them into, it's Albert Einstein had a great quote. He goes, there's only two ways to look at the world. One is that there are no miracles, and the other is that everything is a miracle.
Everything is a miracle.
And I don't
that's
think,
powerful.
Right?
Yeah.
So I'm in the everything is a miracle camp.
Yeah, that's powerful. Like there's a scripture text that I like to read sometimes in the New Testament that God will give you a peace that surpasses all understanding. And some of the greatest moments throughout my day is early in the morning when I can just listen and I can just hear nature. And I'm like, wow, that's like the water running. That's like the frogs. And, and most people take those moments for granted. But those are the moments I'm like, man, I got a lot of peace and harmony going on in my life. I was sitting out on my back deck a couple of weeks ago, and I just thought to myself, man, I got a beautiful life. Mm-hmm. And that thought process was, I was able to work. I got a home in Alabama as well, so Birmingham, Alabama, and out on my back, we always get these deers out there running early in the morning.
They're so beautiful.
Yeah, and I'm just out there on the back
watch
porch.
them all day long.
Yeah. I'm having a cup of nice sweet latte. Hazelnut is my favorite, and I'm watching the deers. And just for that moment, I'm like, man, I got a beautiful life. I got a peace that surpasses all understanding, which is biblical context. But that biblical context became reality for me that moment, and I'm always in search for those type of moments when I'm like, wow, I used to take this for granted, but just having that peace to where I can hear, the peace to where I can see things that most people don't see. It helps me understand how blessed I am.
It's such a gift to be here.
Yeah. Oh man, it's man. When you really think about this, I say this all the time. On a daily basis, every second, 2 people leave this earth. So that's 130 people per minute. That's 7,833 per hour. That's 163,000 people per day. And what you just said, I'm like, wow. I woke up this morning. Not only did I wake up this morning, but I woke up in my right mind. Like, I didn't wake up like trying to put my belt around my ankles. I wasn't trying to put like my pants around my shoulders. But I'm like, those type of things that I think a lot of people take for granted. And I'm thinking like, hold on a second. Like, you woke me up this morning. Like, I didn't transition in my sleep last night. I got up this morning, and when my feet hit the ground, I had an understanding that I was blessed. And it's not because I get the opportunity to go eat a great breakfast on Hollywood Boulevard. It's not that, all these great tangible things that I think people consider themselves blessed. And I'm like, that's not why you're blessed. You're blessed because you got the gift of life. You're blessed because you can receive the oxygen that causes you to breathe. You're blessed because you can see. You're blessed because you can hear. Not because I can get on a plane and fly from the East Coast to the West Coast. That's just called having money in the bank. I'm not blessed because of that.
So do you believe in life after death?
I do believe in life after death. I mean, I honestly believe when you talk about mortality and immortality, and everybody believes different, but I believe you're transitioning.
Right.
Yeah, what about yourself?
100%.
Okay.
In fact, I wrote an article right after my dad passed entitled, How My Father Proved that he was still very much alive.
Wow. ...
1 week after his death. It's in the Huffington Post. I think we're eternal spiritual beings.
Yeah.
And we incarnate in many different dimensions. But we're never going to be us again.
That's right. Yeah, I totally agree.
What I'm looking at is a unique experience in all existence. This right here will never happen again. Even if we took your DNA and we cloned you and we created someone that 40 whatever years later looks exactly like this, it wouldn't be the same person.
Wouldn't be the same person.
Not the same experiences, not the same parents, not the same upbringing, not the same soul.
Wow.
So we have to honor this incredibly unique thing called our lives.
Wow.
I mean, when my dad died and I was looking at his body, I said, wow, okay, he'll come back. And it's like, but he won't come back as that. This thing called who he was is a once in a multiverse experience, and it will never happen again.
Wow. That's that's something to think about. And I don't think most people think about that life after life is eternity.
Right.
And there's no, you're right, there's no turning back from that. And I think it gives me, even on earth, I always think, I heard this saying and it stuck with me, at your last breath, what would you be thinking about? And most people be thinking, that I really live in this particular body on earth, that I really live it out.
Yeah.
Because most people don't live. They don't enjoy the moments.
Did I learn as much as I could learn? Did I experience as much as I could experience? Did I give back and contribute to others as much as I could give back and contribute?
Man, that's what it's all about, Richard. That kind of gets back into family. I know we're running out of time, but family.
And I do want to talk briefly about this guy that you worked with.
Yeah, you know what? Let's jump over to influence. We can always come back to family. So a lot about influence for me is I have what I call a 4I pillar. 4I pillar: invest, influence, impact, inspire. Mm-hmm. And so as I work as a community activist, I use those pillars because when you invest in an individual, it provides a platform to influence. Mm-hmm. And getting the opportunity to work on Capitol Hill, I was there in 16, 17, 18, when former President Trump was the president there. And, we had what they call White House opportunities. White House opportunities is where you got all these big financial firms, whether it be like Morgan Stanley, Dean Witter, Merrill Lynch, right, Warren Average, you name it. Any of their clients that wanted to defer capital gain up to 10 years, they could do it because there was 171 designated cities, is what they call opportunity zone. And so basically, if you had a client that had capital gain, say, okay, for economic development, economic growth, I can defer my taxes for 10 years, right, for economic development, economic growth. And it had to go to one of these 171 designated cities. So that was a great opportunity for me. But the most important part of the opportunity was I got the opportunity to see some of the social economic impact communities throughout the country. It gave me the opportunity to see very below impoverished communities. And so these communities got the designation. And the majority of those communities, again, I looked at the kids and I looked at the individuals that was in those communities. They lacked exposure. And that's why I got more involved on the activist side. When most people ask me, like, what is a political activist? When you look at political activists, it's a person that understands political science and economics, but they also understand that you're fighting for individuals, or you're a voice to echo for individuals who lost their voting rights, but they're still citizens of the United States of America. And so a lot of what we see in some of those 171 cities is the majority of your homeless population. Man, you'd be amazed how many veterans that are out there who are homeless.
Well, we see it here in L.A.
Oh, yeah. You see it here in L.A. And so those was the individuals I was more passionate about, saying, okay, if you're still going to be a citizen, because no matter what you do in this country, we're not going to pack you up and ship you away. I mean, there are some areas in our country, we're living in Florida as well. And living in Florida, I won't get off until our governor there. But if you're part of the homeless population in the state of Florida and you're not willing to change, they basically put you on a bus and send you somewhere.
So I know we're almost out of time. I'd love for you to answer this question.
Okay.
Personally, and I wrote an article entitled, "Is Donald Trump Mentally Ill?" It was in the Huffington Post. And I talked about, and I interviewed psychiatrists and psychologists about their diagnosis that he has severe narcissistic personality disorder, what's also called malignant narcissism. Yeah. And I believe that to be true. What surprises me, I mean, he hangs out with porn stars. He lies nonstop. He seems to cozy up to dictators, does not believe in democracy in the way, on and on and on. He's foul-mouthed. On Easter, he did 71 different Truth Social posts that had nothing to do with Jesus, except for him to try to sell the idea that he is the return of Jesus Christ, which I think is quite honestly bullshit.
Yeah.
But what is it about this man that you and other evangelical Christians look up to?
Well, it's a lot of hearing all that you said, and I take a lot of that in. And I think sometimes we're in a position and we ask the question, what's best for our country? And I think because we understand that Donald Trump is what's best for our country right now, it's hard not to vote for him.
But how? How is he best for our country? He's going to literally, he told people that he's going to be a dictator on day one, and which means to violate our 200+ year history of democracy. And I mean, Vladimir Putin is a dictator. Do we want that?
You don't want a dictatorship for our country, but when you look at who else is out there that has the political savviness to themselves, who else is out there?
Well, like President Biden.
That understands.
Who I think is a real Christian. I mean, where was he on Easter, right? He was in church. He's the one that got $35 maximum insulin for poor people across America who have diabetes. He's the one that has incentivized renewable energy industries and the chip industry and things that bring jobs. It's the lowest unemployment in decades and decades. He helped us out of the pandemic. He's trying to solve the gun violence crisis. I mean, people bash on him so much. It's like he's so horrible. He's so horrible. I don't get it.
No, I don't think Joe Biden is horrible. And again, when you look at America, clearly America is divided. And I know when I say America is divided, I'm not talking about blacks and whites. I'm talking about.
And Donald Trump did a lot of that. He has really polarized people.
I agree.
That doesn't feel like Jesus. Jesus went the other way, didn't he? He wanted to bring people together.
You're absolutely right.
And he even cared about the lesser of these and the prostitutes and the this. It's like he saw the good in all people, whereas Trump seems to be very judgmental.
Yeah, Trump, I agree. Okay,
I mean, so help me out here, man.
I know we're out of time, but from an economic standpoint of view, I think his approach would be totally different. I would put him up there in the ranking of probably the top 3 best presidents our country has ever seen.
Because of?
The economic side of things and the negotiation. When you look at everything that goes on across seas, his negotiation is much better. And then again, looking at White House opportunities, what most people don't believe, most people don't understand. White House opportunities are for those forgotten communities. And when I say those forgotten communities, it's for the homeless. It's for the people that need drug rehab.
I think if you sat down with Joe Biden and you addressed all of these issues, for example, students, student debt, right? He has done more to relieve the pressure of student debt of anyone. And a lot of African Americans, have been struggling with it. They can't buy homes because they're saddled with on and on and on and on. And people keep saying the economy was better, the economy is better, the economy is better under Trump. I have yet to understand how that is true. As I said, we have the lowest inflation in the Western world. We have the lowest unemployment we've ever had. The stock market is way bigger, which helps regular people as well with their retirement accounts and all of that, than it was under Donald Trump. I just don't understand it. Plus, I find him not to be a moral human being.
Oh, I will agree with you on that. I mean, from a spiritual standpoint of view, and
lying. If I lied once, my father and mother would put soap in my mouth.
Yeah.
He would have so much soap in his mouth, he would bubble up. You wouldn't even be able to see him.
I think we're out of time. Not out of message, not out of word, but I think we're out of time.
It's been an honor.
Man, it's been an honor. We gotta get you back in because we're gonna pick up where we left off because there is a lot that I want to say from an economic standpoint of view and a political standpoint of view, and I think we may disagree on some of that, but I want to bring you back in the studio so we can talk more about it.
It'd be great. I would love it.
Man, thank you so much, Richard.